Okay. Hello, PSMLA. My name is Rich Madel. I'm one of the organizers of this year's Fall Virtual Conference. I am excited to be joined today by a very special guest. Mrs. Giselle Barreto Fetterman is an outspoken advocate for issues pertaining to access and equity. She's a self-described hugger. And oh, by the way, she's the second lady of Pennsylvania. She is the founder of the Free Store 15104, where surplus and donated goods are received and redistributed to neighbors in need with the goal to eradicate food and clothing insecurity. The project has been so successful that it has inspired spin-off locations and the birth of 412 Food Rescue, a community-wide effort to end hunger and reduce food waste. The effort has rescued over 11 million pounds of food. She's also the co-founder of For Good PGH, a nonprofit that works to advocate for inclusion and inspire kindness. Its first initiative, Hello Hijab, has received both national and international praise. Giselle was born in Brazil and emigrated as a child to the United States, living as an undocumented immigrant for over a decade. Her work has been featured on the Today Show, CNN, NPR, and now at PSMLA. Giselle is a 40 under 40 honoree, a TEDx speaker, a Jefferson Award recipient, and something tells me perhaps her most proud title is a mother of three and the mother of a beloved rescue pup named Levi. Ms. Barreto Fetterman, thank you so much for being here.
Giselle, thanks for having me. I always think it's funny. My kids will see my resume and my bio and they'll say, you say the dog's name, you say my dog Levi, but you don't name your children. And they're like, why?
All right, interesting. That is a good question. All right, so I say let's start from the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about what was your time like growing up in Brazil? Let's start there.
Sure. Yeah, I was born in Rio de Janeiro. I was raised by a single mom. My mom had a great career. By all means, we were financially stable, comfortable. I was surrounded by family, a lot of time with all my cousins, very close family, but we weren't safe, as most families growing up in a city like Rio aren't. So when my mom left for work each morning, I didn't know if she was going to make it home. That is just unfortunately a part of life there. And my mom one day decided that that was it. You know, she did not want violence to be so normalized for myself and for my brother. So with just the courage on her own, without knowing any of English, without having anyone in this country, she came home with a suitcase and said, pack your favorite things, we're going on an adventure.
Oh my God.
And it indeed was an adventure. I was about to turn 8. And I remember at that age thinking everything was really important. Like, how do I pack my entire room into this one suitcase? And how do I choose what those things are? And I remember struggling with that. That was really a challenge for me. But ultimately, I packed like a teddy bear, my favorite doll, my journal, and then said goodbye to everything else to start this new adventure.
Wow. And you were about 8 years old, is that what you said? Wow. Now, in reading in, your family's no stranger to academia either, right? Your mom earned a PhD in Brazil, is that right?
Right. She in Brazil worked as a nutritionist and ran hospitals, but had multiple advanced degrees. And, you know, I look at her courage and I try to often think like, would I have it? Right. Just like what she did. And our lives always kind of changed very quickly. It was very highs and lows. And, you know, one day she is running hospitals in Brazil. Within a week, she is a domestic worker, now cleaning houses and hotels. But she never looked back. You know, I think at that very young age, I learned that you can always start over, right? There's dignity in all work and it's never too late to start again.
Wow. So as teachers of languages and cultures, it's really not uncommon for us to center the migrant experience in our classes as a way to really understand not only our target culture, but also the members of that target culture in our own communities. So I'm curious to know, you know, what were your experiences like here in the United States? And also, I imagine not being proficient in English, right?
Right. Yeah, I spoke no English. I mean, the one thing I knew was like asking for a rubber, which it was supposed to be an eraser, but that's just, what we learned. And I remember learning eventually, like, that's not the right way to say it. But I was an ESL student. My mom did night school. So it was like a GED equivalent, but it was part of a learning English program. So she went through that program in the evenings when she came home from work, and I was through that program in school. And I try to tell how the difference of feeling welcomed, what that can do for a new person, right? And I really try to encourage my children to be welcomers and those that I work with. So when I arrived, I moved to New York, and my principal brings me into the classroom, and I didn't speak English, so everything was translated to me. And he said to the classroom, "This is Giselle. She comes from Brazil." And my first teacher looked at me and said, "Wherever you came from and however you got here, I'm so happy to see you." And it was translated to me, but it hit me in such a way that I've carried that message forever. So if you come visit the Free Store in Braddock, when you get there, there's a giant sign outside that says, "Wherever you came from and however you got here, we're so glad to see you." It really was such a moment for me. I try to think of, if I had walked in and not felt welcomed, how that would have impacted not only my learning experience, but my entire experience, right, in this country. So I really try to do her honor in how she welcomed me and really carry that work everywhere I go.
So if you were to think of some of the most influential teachers in your life, is she one of them, or have
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. She definitely was. And I had amazing teachers, and some knew that I was this undocumented girl trying to make it. And one of them who knew was my college counselor, who in high school refused to meet with me. He said, "She's not going to go to college anyway," and kind of would brush me off and wouldn't schedule me. And I would go to her and cry. She was like my person through all of these years. She was always my advocate. And she has taken it on to be kind of like a troll. And I appreciate it, but she says that she regularly will send him articles about me just to like, and I appreciate that level of petty. I really do. Because, I went to college, I defied his expectations, but he wasn't willing to put in the time. And unfortunately that does exist, right? There is that will always be a part of everything, unfortunately. But I always had an advocate. I always had a few people I could go to who really fought for me when I needed a fighter.
That's awesome. When you think of your experiences learning English, so again, we're an association of language teachers. So I'm curious to know, was there a particular language teacher that made an impact? Were there do you recall like a lesson that you thought was really impactful? Do you recall like an activity? Do you recall an experience in your language learning journey, whether in class or out, that you thought this really allowed me to progress? So,
Definitely. So, I mean, ESL teachers are angels on earth. I am so grateful to the teachers I've had. But also outside of school, Mr. Rogers was a teacher for me. I learned a lot of my English as well at home, watching Mr. Rogers with closed caption on the TV.
Right.
Well, today I can't watch anything without closed caption. It's just like I need it at home. Anything I watch has it. And for me, was listening to him, watching his lips move slowly, and reading. And those three things together really helped me, because I started school, was in ESL, then it was summer. So I had that coverage, and to have a gentle voice be your teacher was really important. I think has really influenced me in my tone. I saw myself in him and his gentleness. But that really was very important to me. And I also remember, because mathematics, we're much more advanced in Brazil than we are here. We learned like a Kuhlmann mathematics in Brazil. I was top student in math, even though I spoke no English.
Right.
I had something, right? Like I was behind in everything else, but math I could compete with. And that helped me, knowing that at least I have this one thing until I can catch up with the other things.
Oh, that's so cool. So I'm thinking the beginning of the pandemic, the world's shutting down, and a lot of families, a lot of parents had to pivot into a role, not only as parents, but also kind of the in-home teacher, right? I mean, that happened here in PA, that happened across the nation, it happened all over the world. So I'm wondering, what was that experience like for you? What was your takeaway? do you have a newfound appreciation for what or for what teachers in general are doing on a day-to-day basis? I mean,
Always.
tell me about that experience for you.
Teachers are superheroes. I knew it before. I know it even more now. I know my strengths and weaknesses. Like I never signed up to be a homeschool teacher. I don't think it's my strength. I did my best managing, but I also accepted one day that it has to be good enough, right? Like we're all, we're going to make it the best we can. And I remember the day that I was just like, this is really hard. And my youngest is 7 now. So he was like 6 at the beginning. And my older 2 kind of were able to manage their schedule, but a 5.5-year-old, 6-year-old sitting in front of a computer was impossible. And I knew the schedule and he was really quiet. And I said, something's up. And I went in his room. He was under his desk during class on his iPad. And I said, well, August, what are you doing? And he was watching The Bachelorette. And he said, I just want to know who wins. I looked at him and I said, okay. And I walked out of the room. I mean, that's the state that I was in with virtual school and learning.
Hands up, sorry. Okay, you got it.
Just overwhelmed. And teachers choose to do this on purpose. Every single day, they deserve all the awards. I mean, they are just amazing. Just amazing.
Couldn't agree more. All right, so your story begins in Brazil and then to New York, right?
Mm-hmm. We settled in Queens, New York.
Okay, and then somehow to Braddock, Pennsylvania. I mean, how does that happen? What's that transition like? Because I can't imagine that those 3 places could be any different.
They are so different. Yeah. So then settle in New York for several years. Eventually I settled in Newark, New Jersey. At that time, I'm working as a nutritionist. I followed my mom's footsteps. I had a small practice in the city and I had a nonprofit in Newark, New Jersey. And I was doing the work of food justice and food access, really passionate about that work, working with a community that had little access to good quality food and working to support them to make better choices, very limited choices. And I was at a yoga retreat in Costa Rica, totally unrelated. And there was One American magazine and I pick it up and inside there's an article about Braddock. And it spoke of this community that had contributed so much to America, to the world. It's the reason skyscrapers exist. It's because the steel was developed in Braddock to do that. The steel that built the Brooklyn Bridge, the bridge I think is the most beautiful bridge in the world, came from Braddock. And this community gave so much, its people gave so much, and then it was abandoned and essentially discarded. And it was this idea, like as an immigrant, as an undocumented immigrant for a long time, I felt invisible. I felt unseen. I felt discarded in many senses. And to think that anybody, a person, a place, or a thing can contribute so much and then get just dropped to the side, I just can't accept it. Right, and having always lived in cities and loved cities, I never knew abandonment. Like 90% of the community left, walked away. In some cases, leaving wedding albums behind and clothing, just packed up and left looking for work or opportunities. And I wanted to see that up close. I wanted to understand it. So I sent a letter to the borough and I shared the work that I was doing in Newark and I wanted to visit and just learn from it. And the letter ended up with John, who at the time was like a new mayor. And he called me, I came to visit. And then that's how I ended up in Braddock.
The authentic love story, is it not? Come on. So, now I can't imagine that Braddock, PA has like some Brazilian comfort food that you can turn to, right?
No, there was the Braddock has a population of 1 Brazilian, and that was me. And then 3 little ones that I gave. I was trying to grow the population, so now there are 4 Brazilians in Braddock. And Pennsylvania isn't as diverse as New York, as other cities I've lived in. So that alone was an adjustment. Even just being here and listening, hearing someone speaking a different language is so exciting to me, right? I think you're always longing for home. Mm-hmm. And I'm always looking for home in people because that's what I can find here. So I really try to find that connection anywhere that I am.
Nice. So I'm curious to know, what role does your linguistic heritage, your cultural heritage, what role does that play in the family that you are raising?
It's very active. Like I want the children to know, to be proud that they are half Brazilian, right? That is a part of their story. I play music constantly at the house. They're forced to watch all the big soccer games. They go to all the festivals locally. Pittsburgh does not have a big Brazilian community, but it has a very united community. So there is a samba school, there is a capoeira school, there's Portuguese lessons, so there is enough, it's well organized. So there are 3 Brazilian restaurants. So I really try to keep them very much as you can living in another country. And
Right.
I say to them and to everyone that being an immigrant is living with a broken heart. Everyone you love will never be together. And you're always like, every time people on Facebook post like family reunions and they're all wearing like jeans and white shirts and they're all together, I'm just like, I want that so much, but my family will never be in the same place at once. And they're very lucky that their family at least is closer to them, but everyone I love is far away. So that is difficult.
Mhm. So do you see these intercultural, these global values represented in the way that your husband governs our state as lieutenant governor?
I think my influence is definitely on him. And because he's seen my experiences firsthand, the good and the bad, right? And like we were just at the Latino convention and I spoke and I said, John is, the greatest gift is that he has a very vibrant home and it's a multilingual home and he's very lucky that he gets to experience that. But I raised my children to live in awe, right? And just to celebrate differences and to see it as this amazing thing, right? If we grow up thinking that this is an amazing thing, which it is, right? Learning about each other's cultures, what do you believe in? What do you like to eat? What's your music like? Like I live in awe of all of that. They're not going to grow up in fear or in judgment. What's different? And it's much easier raising children to believe that way than trying to fix adults who see it very differently. So we do a lot of work with the kids here, but I also do a lot of work with adults. I'm regularly in rooms with people who see me as inferior to them simply because I wasn't born here. And that's a challenge. And it's a conversation I have constantly, and it's draining, and I go home and cry about it after. But we have to have those conversations if there's any hope of us making this world any smaller.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. So anybody who spends any time on your social media knows that you spend a ton of time on the road, traveling all over Pennsylvania. And so I'm curious to know, like, what kind of insights do you have regarding the linguistic diversity of our state? And what implications do you think that has as language educators of our state?
You're so needed. There isn't a lot, in many parts that you go in the state. And I'm very well aware that I'm in some rooms where I'm the first immigrant they have ever met. It's hard to process that, right? But that's a reality. I am in rooms where they've never met someone who was born in a different country. They've never met someone from Brazil. They never met someone who speaks more than one language. And I try to keep that always in mind and understand that you're still you are your environment, you are what you were raised, and they are people first, but someone taught them, if they have negative feelings about it, they were taught to have those. So I try to think that shame doesn't solve things, right? It's through education. So it's having them meet me and talk to me. And I will regularly have people say things like, but you're so pretty and you do such work. I don't have an issue with you, right? It's all the other immigrants. And that's challenging, right? And it's difficult to have that conversation, but we continue to have it. But I tell my kids and as many people as I can, like, if you have the ability to travel and see the world and talk to people who don't look like you or think like you, eat their foods, right? Go to their places. Like I tell the kids, you cannot get married until you have left this country. You've met so many people. You don't know who you are until you get out there and you meet everyone else. And a lot of people don't have the opportunity to travel.
Right.
unfortunately. But classrooms are able to bring that culture into their rooms. So that is one way they can travel, through books, through education, and which is why your work is so important, especially in rural parts of the state.
Yeah, no. I couldn't agree more. And I just think, how much changes I've seen just with the access to technology in the 10 plus years that I've been doing it. I mean, the ability to really kind of show the world via a computer screen, or I mean, it's it's impressive, that we can do so much.
And there's ways to be really creative. Like I know this gentleman who was very, I mean, I've had these really difficult conversations with him, very anti-immigrant, very anti anything different. And he's a runner and he runs on like a treadmill. And I suggested that he start running in the different countries, right? Because most treadmills now you can choose to run in Peru or Argentina or whatever. And he has, and now he's feeling all global. Like I connected with him recently and he was like, in the last week, I was just in Peru and here and that. And that was just a very small idea that I put to him, but now he has taken it very seriously. And he's now wants to tell me every week which new countries he's visited. So I think conversations help break the fear, right? I think unfortunately people are afraid of what's different, afraid of what they don't know, what they haven't seen up close, but we can't write them off. We can't give up on them for that. I think we have to continue to try to challenge those ideas, those fears, and those feelings with positive.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I can confidently speak for so many language teachers. I mean, we believe in the bottom up change, right? We believe in exposing kids early to these different ideas, these different cultural practices, products, and perspectives, so that they can get a deeper understanding of, for a lot of these students, who their neighbors are, right? I mean, right in their backyard.
Exactly.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the Free Store 15104.
Sure. So when I moved to America, we quickly found a little apartment. We had no furniture. We have no money. We're in this new place trying to figure it out. And I learned about bulk garbage day, which is the day once a month in New York where you can take out your big items for the trash, furniture, things like that. And I remember coming across this curb full of furniture. It was a nice dresser, some nice chairs, and I couldn't believe that this was going to a landfill. Like this was going to be destroyed. And at that time, I had no furniture at home. Here's a curb full of furniture, and it didn't make sense to me. So we were able to furnish our apartment entirely with what we found in the curb. And I was a math major before I was a nutritionist, and I always thought mathematically, right? It was like, my house doesn't have furniture. Here is furniture going to be wasted. It doesn't add up.
Right.
And I see the world like that. Like what else doesn't add up? And the Free Store was taking that experience as being a dumpster diver and shopping on the curb to solving problems. I think a lot of the solutions we have are already around us. We just have to be creative and do it. So the Free Store is a place where we receive bulk excess goods, clothing, shoes, accessories, toys, food, formula, diapers, you name it, anything a family will need, and we can give it out for free because we received it for free. Many cases, these are things that would have ended up in a landfill. So it comes from people as well as retailers. I learned that retail waste is awful. I mean, like last season's clothing, last season's shoes, all goes to a landfill to be incinerated. So it's so destructive, not only to our environment, and it's so wasteful, but it could be solving problems like clothing insecurity and so much more. So the Free Store is this really dignified, loving place that you come in, and if we have what you want, you're welcome to take it. We don't believe in filling out forms. I don't want to see your taxes. I think all those steps are really dehumanizing. Yeah. And if you need diapers, you need them now. If you're hungry, you need it now. So we've created the first Free Store in the country, and just this really lovely space to serve families. And we're entirely volunteer run. We actually turn 9 years old next week. Wow. We're solar powered, completely efficient. And we have a lot of fun, a lot of important conversations. We're able to match families to other services they may need. And we're just a really trusted place.
I mean, it seems almost like a community center, right? I mean, just kind of like a community hub for a lot of people. That's tremendous.
It is. It's mutual aid, right? Mutual aid is a way to solve so many problems.
So the For Good PGH advocates for inclusion and inspires kindness. And as I was kind of learning more about that, I couldn't help but think that those goals kind of overlap with a lot of what we do. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is, and also what can we as language teachers be doing to support a cause or specifically an organization like that?
Sure. So For Good, it's really an umbrella. Our mission is the broadest mission statement. It's to do good. I think people want to do good. They don't often know where to start. So we empower people to do good, and we also create opportunities for that. In a lot of cases, we are responding to need, like we're putting out fires. Our signature project when we launched was Hello Hijab. And this was at the height of the Muslim travel ban. A good friend of mine who's a hijabi woman had her hijab pulled in University District. I mean, just an assault. It's devastating. You feel hopeless and you feel like you're one person, right? What can you do? And usually I cry about it for a couple days and really process it, and then I'm ready to respond. And what we did is Hello Hijab was our response, and it was Barbie compatible hijabs that we designed. They were made by Muslim sewers.
Yeah, sewers.
Is that the right word? Okay,
Yeah,
I think in Portuguese. So they made these beautiful Barbie hijabs, and we wanted to teach children that, here's your Barbie doll with a hijab, without a hijab, it doesn't change who your doll is. Is it different? Is it new? Great, let's learn about it. Let's celebrate it. It came with like educational cards, telling the history, helping you understand how to pronounce it, what it means. Mm-hmm. And we launched it and it went quickly viral. It had never been done before. I mean, think about how many neighbors and friends we have who are Muslim, millions population. They did not have representation in their dolls, right? And right. To know you belong in all these places is to see yourself in them. And it speaks to the importance of representation in all spaces. And we had grandmothers from Turkey, I mean, all over the world writing us letters saying, I never had a doll who looked like me, and now my granddaughter does. I mean, just really powerful. We had a mother in Chicago who said her daughter got in the bus and ran to the back of the bus. She ran after her. She sat next to a woman with a hijab and told her she had a doll that was beautiful like her. And that's amazing. But the woman told the mom that she had lived in this country for 17 years. And that was the first positive experience she had in regards to her hijab, which is devastating and shows the work that's needed. But even like I would get stopped at Costco and someone would say, I didn't even know that's what it was called. Like, thanks for teaching me that's what it's called. And now I make a point to connect with women who are wearing one and, appreciate it and say it. So I believe in it. I believe in the work that you do, which is making the world smaller work is what I call it. And that's what we try to do. We try to make the world smaller and remove those barriers, that confusion, that fear, and really turn it into a celebration.
I think that's a great way to put it, making the world smaller. I love it. All right. So I don't want to keep you forever, although I could. I'm fascinated by everything that you're telling me. So we'll go with some rapid fire questions here at the end. You game?
Yes, I'm game.
All right. So I think I already know the answer to this, but if we were to say favorite school subject?
Math.
Yeah, see, I knew that. Favorite author or book?
Oh, yes, The Little Prince, Le Petit Prince, Saint-Exupéry.
Yes, of course.
A favorite of all time. I read it once a year still, and every time I draw a new lesson from it, it is the best book ever written.
High praise. I think I know the answer to this one too. Wawa or Sheetz?
Okay, so you were gonna think I was gonna say Sheetz because of John, but I'm an independent woman. I think I actually like Love's the best. Have you been to a Love's?
I don't think that I have.
I'm on the road a lot. Okay, so Love's has showers. They sell cowboy hats. They have everything you can think of. Fresh cut fruit. So I think Love's is my favorite. Okay. There's a little movie theater because it's for the truckers.
Right.
Take naps. I think I love Love's the most.
All right, that wasn't even an option, but you went there anyway. I appreciate it. I think I know the answer to this one too. Football or soccer?
Soccer. There's only one football and it's soccer.
Right. What artist or group that that sings or that plays in Portuguese do you think an American audience or an English-speaking audience needs to know about?
Okay, so Chitãozinho Chororó is my favorite, but it's very, very country and it might not be for everybody. But if you want to meet a Brazilian that will like blow your mind, I would listen to Anitta. Anitta is in the process of crossing over. She's doing a lot of songs with American pop artists right now. She's really cool. She's beautiful. She has a really, challenging story. She grew up in a favela, really hustled, and she is the #1 artist in Brazil. And her name is Anitta, and she's awesome.
All right, noted. So let's imagine you have the opportunity to escape for a weekend. Are you going to the lake, the mountains? Are you making your way over to Jersey? You going to the shore? What are you doing?
Oh, I would probably go to the shore. Yeah, probably be on the beach.
If you
My mom went into labor with me on the beach, so it's like
really?
It's true, yeah.
Oh my God. If you could go anywhere in the world that's not Brazil, where would you go?
I went to go to, it would probably be Morocco. I haven't spent much time in that part of the world, and I really want to.
Agreed. A podcast we should all be listening to.
Oh, I love Glendon Doyle's. Currently really into that podcast. I listen to the Kindness podcast on NPR. I think it's very good too. But I like that we can do hard things. I've been on a kick this week. I'm on the road so much, so I'm always trying to find something to listen to.
The last TV show that you just binge watched.
Currently watching Made on Netflix.
The best, right?
Isn't it? Oh, I want them to live with me.
Yeah, a tremendous show. All right, I think that's all I have. Any final comments?
No, I want to apologize to the conference. We had, I didn't make the last time I was supposed to be there, and I lost sleep for a whole week over it. I'm honestly like, it's going to haunt me forever. So I want to apologize for that. And thank you for giving me a second chance.
Apology accepted. Apology accepted. Giselle, thank you so much for being so gracious with your time. It has been a pleasure to be with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll do it again soon.
I hope so.